All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 5 of Phoenix Rising. It's been a great experience for us, hasn't it?
I've had a
It's been interesting actually. Like when we normally have run the retreats here, there's stuff going on all the time, and it's been a nice balance. But at the same time, there's been so many videos to upload, so there's still been lots to do. So it's been I've actually really enjoyed the concept and the framework and the layout of it, and I hope you guys have too. So we wanted to start off this morning by just asking you to put in the chat box. We've really talked over the last few days about being in stillness and reflection, and we trust that you guys have taken that on board. And thanks, Louise. Yeah, we're happy that you've enjoyed being part of it as well. We've asked you to be in stillness and reflection, so we'd really like to know if you've taken and what you've received as a result of being in stillness and reflection before we go into the talking about intentions and visioning and action today. So what have you received from being in stillness and reflection? And also, do you feel that you could have spent a little bit more time in stillness and reflection? So just take a moment now. It's been awesome too, as you guys are all writing. There's been a lovely little core group of people that have pretty much joined us on every call. So we're really grateful to you, because all the people that are just listening to the recording are going to take a lot away from your insights as well.
Especially the other day, Thursday, when we had so many questions coming in from different people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the theme too. Today, keep the questions going.
Yeah.
The session's meant to be 2 hours, is that right?
Yeah, it's meant to be 2 hours.
Yeah, so it's a 2-hour session. But if you I won't get off until every question that I can answer has been answered. So I know at the end of 2 hours we'll close. But if you still have questions, then I'll avail myself too, because this is what I love doing. So
James has made a really great comment. It was really uncomfortable at first, but the more I did it, the more comfortable it became. And that's what we found. And the discussion that we had with Annabelle and me and Megan yesterday was very much about that, is when we start to realize that we need to be more still and we need to create more space for ourselves, it can feel really disconcerting, and we can start to fight it. And sometimes, and because it is so uncomfortable being with ourselves. And something that I've always said in the work that I've done is my goal is to help you feel as so comfortable with yourself that you could be stranded on a deserted island for the rest of your life, and it'll by yourself, and you would be fine. So because if we can't be by ourselves, how are we ever going to trust that others can be with us? So it is incredibly uncomfortable, and that's why we have harped on it to an extent. Well, I've harped on it to an extent, because to me, with so many competing priorities in my life, it's so important. And I absolutely, nowadays, I cherish and I love my alone time. I really love being by myself. So yeah, that's a really great comment, James. Have you read any more?
Yeah, there's some gold there. Benny B says, with stillness comes clarity, and that's the really big thing. It was taught to me really early on by a senior commander in the military when it was my last day up in Darwin. Him and I had not necessarily seen eye to eye, but I respected him greatly, because he was a commander that, even though we could agree to disagree, he would support me to the hilt. And he was like a very busy man. He was this top military commander in the base, and so he was commanding over about 7,000 people. But when he found out I was leaving, he said, "James, come and see me before you go." And he'd just finished with an entourage of overseas guests, and he got them out the door, and then got me in the door. And he spent about 10 minutes. He didn't really have 10, if you could say, he didn't really have 10 minutes of his day. Just pushed everything aside, told his secretary not to interfere, and we spent 10 minutes together. And he said, one of the big things, mate, take away is that every single day, find your own space to just be still. And he said, he used the term commander because that's what we used in the military. A commander must do that, or they get lost in the weeds. They can't see, what really needs to be seen. And in an environment like the military, for someone to say that to me, I thought was a really, really pivotal thing. And funnily enough, my last day in the militry,
high level of awareness.
He was
military man.
Exceptionally high level. And no, there are a lot of high awareness.
Yes,
people
there are, absolutely.
And on my last day in the military, he was now a general, and he cleared his schedule for 45 minutes in the front of the day to sit with me as a man. And it just demonstrated to me that anyone can find time for something. And, it's a big thing for me to, whenever I want to make a business decision, a life decision or anything, the first thing I do is I meditate and just go into it. We've got a master's program running that a couple of you are coming up for next week. And the first thing I do before even pulling up the actual run show or the sequence of events is I meditate. And then I view the sequence of events, and then I meditate on the sequence of events to ensure that the sequence of events correlates to the people that are coming, which means I've never run a single workshop the same. And that only comes, and that clarity of action only comes from that place of stillness. So beautifully put, Benny.
I love what you said, Ben. I've never thought about stillness for clarity, only decreasing mind chatter. Perfect, because as we've talked about so much in this and with Annabelle's session as well, it's that body awareness of being in stillness and the connection of the spiritual stillness, the emotional stillness, the body stillness that creates the overall whole feeling, beingness of stillness. So it's not just about stopping the mind, because the fact is that, well, this is my experience, I don't think that I will ever be able to stop my mind going off. What I do though is I stop reacting to my mind. So my mind tells me that I need to do this and I need to do that and I need to get up and I need to, I need to prioritize something that's more important, but I stop reacting to that. So I allow those thoughts to just go through, and it doesn't mean that they necessarily, that they stop. They keep coming, but I stop reacting to them. I stop responding. My body stops responding to them.
For me, like a cup of tea is like a sacred act. And anyone who knows me, I have many sacred acts during the day.
Cups of tea.
There are many sacred acts. But the thing is, it allows me to just sit and to reflect. And it's become my own form of meditation in many respects with myself. So a little tip there is that if you do live what's called a busy day, then what you can do is you don't necessarily have to set up some grandiose structure. Having little cups of tea, and you're spending 5 minutes where you're going to have your own cup of tea. You might work in a busy office block, but there might be like a little, outdoor area of greenery where you can just go and sit for 10 minutes with a cup of tea and not get interrupted. That's the key thing, is no phones off, everything like that. There's that moment of time during the day that just allows you to come back to center.
And Louisa said that as well. She said that increasingly aware of being stillness in the midst of chaos throughout the day. And, that is so powerful, because that is us creating our reality. And it also, if there's a whole bunch of stuff going on around us and we can allow ourselves to be in this space and in stillness, we might notice that there'll be emotions of guilt coming up, or there might be emotions of, there might be some FOMO coming up, or fear of missing out, if anyone doesn't know what FOMO is. There might be those things coming up for us. And so we can recognize them and go, oh, right. Again, not react to them, and realize that, no, I'm doing this for me, because I am worth it. And I am the work. and we allow ourselves to, no matter where we are, just be in that space, and things just flow so much more easily, don't they, Louise?
I think one thing that Grace mentioned up here, I thought that was a really good comment. Kept distracting myself with other things, and I found the success failure exercise really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
The distance for me from feeling the emotion to finding the lessons seems huge.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Just quick grammar thing, you put me twice in the sentence, just for you.
James is like a complete grammar expert.
I'm all over it, yeah. Abby checks my spelling since she's been 11. She spells better than me. But anyway, it's a massive thing. And quite regularly, if you're doing a course like this and you're not in the presence of the people can be the accountability. So you're doing this course on your own, and all of a sudden you hit this hurdle, this obstacle, this challenge. And sometimes for some people, it can be just all too hard. So they stop. So therein lies one of the biggest challenges when we do stuff, in an environment which we haven't extracted ourselves from. And if you can become, a master at actually doing that, you'll be able to include so many different learnings in different areas of your life. But the thing is, one of the reasons why we'll distract ourselves is the actual emotion itself. Now, over time, and we mentioned this, there was a shed tin. If you haven't figured out what shed tin in my lexicon is, it's a shit tin, but it's just my polite way of saying a lot. So
you just said shit tin.
I did, didn't I? So there's a shed tin of information in that emotion session. One of the things that happens in our life is we build up this emotional suppression for a long time. And so therefore, it's like there's this big bouncer that just pushes us away from either a lesson or wanting to do something. Now, what has to happen is you have to let that suppressed emotion go to come to the point where we can actually find the relevant lesson from the situation. So, we might have a lot of sadness in us, and it's built up from many, many different sad occasions. Then cool, go and hire a video called Marley and Me. If you haven't seen it, watch it. If you don't cry as a man or a woman, like, you are a stone individual, you are. and just allow yourself to cry, or do something which allows yourself to cry, and just cry, and don't look for a lesson initially. That's the trick when you get into the initial stages of emotional literacy. Just feel the energy.
And I think that is such a challenge, that point that you just made, don't look for a lesson initially, because I think especially for women, that this is my experience, because I've worked mostly with women.
I thought you were actually laughing at me saying that after the way I started, because I had to have a lesson in everything, and then if I couldn't find it, I'd go digger and deeper, and it had to get more serious, and and I had to go 3 hours into meditation in a stressed position just to find the lesson. That didn't necessarily work out too well. But
he's not exaggerating. Like, he does tend to exaggerate, but he's actually not exaggerating.
Sorry, please continue.
So, because that aspect of reframing is we've been taught, especially those of us, and I was one of them, like, had this need to. In fact, I was really good at being a positive thinker as I was growing up. Like, I'd be able to look on the positive side, so I could easily cognitively reframe and go, oh well, it was, it's the best thing that could have happened to me that my dad left when I was 10 years old, but I carried the emotional trauma of that for so long because I didn't allow myself to feel the pain and the hurt and the abandonment that my little person had decided that when my dad left. So it's what you're saying is so important, is that we don't have to get a lesson. And in fact, it's best if we don't look for the lessons straight away. It's best if we just allow ourselves to be sad. And Meg was talking yesterday when she was, because, Meg's had, what did she say, 4 deaths in 7 years or something, like, and her husband died, and she nursed her husband to death. So she was talking about when she went to see a psychologist, and the psychologist, she sat down and she was ready to, get the lessons and be able to move forward. And she started talking about what had been going on for her. And the psychologist just said to her, yeah, that's really gave her permission to accept that what was going on in her life was really, really sad, and it was okay for her to be in that sadness and not have to look for a way to make it positive straight away.
I've had some very close mates who know exactly what I do take their own life. One took his own life on my birthday, when he'd actually been asked by a lady to ring me. And that was the first message I got on my birthday, was just be aware that he took his own life. And funnily enough, his name keeps coming back to me. The first mate that took his own life was the same name, Jason. And he took his own life when I was with him in the Defence Academy. We're good mates at the Defence Academy. And then another Jason took his own life about 3 months after coming to one of our workshops, because he didn't reach out for help again. And he was the primary school mascot. And he was found by his young 7-year-old son hanging in the garage. So I've had a lot of death around me since I've been, I had a bit of death beforehand, but I've had a lot of death in my face of people taking their own life by their own hand in the last 10 years, but the last 5 years particularly. And I've become very adept at grieving. I know how to grieve so well. And interestingly enough, that process really started with chooks. I kid you not. Because I started about 8 years ago after one of our chooks got crushed by a guy who was a tradesman on our property, very unconsciously just ran over the chook and then threw the chook under a tree, and I had to find the chook. And he didn't tell me about it, that brought so much anger in me up, because the chooks were the girls' chooks. And I felt him a coward and not actually owning up to me. And I had to then bring the dead chook up to the girls, who were very young, and present the dead chook. And I was angry. And I realised that was part of the grieving process. I knew, because I was training in emotional literacy at the time. And then I watched, and we buried the chook, and we had a grieving circle, and we all sat around, and we were able to just express and cry or get angry or whatever emotion came up. And Penny taught me a big lesson, like cry for 10 seconds, like how, and then she'd be fine and she'd be running around, and she'd leave the circle and she'd go and do her own thing, and then come back like 5 minutes later and then howl for another like 30 seconds and then leave the circle again. And she would just go through these waves. And I'm going, shouldn't I be controlling this? Shouldn't I be vectoring this in some way? And I realised, get the hell out of the way, James. But that process allowed for, call it a ritual or a form of framework or structure for us as a family. This is our second Labrador, and the first Labrador, the night before he passed, we all sat around with the hands on him and on each one of us, and we talked to him, and we gave him permission to leave, and we thanked him, and we cried. And it still brings stuff up for me, and that's okay. And we all we were in the moment. And so we've done that with so many bloody chooks. They're great tools for kids and adults, because I'm talking about my own lesson, to learn that actual practicality of experiencing the coming and the going of something that we truly love. And so it's a process. Don't run to the lesson immediately. Allow
As Louise said, the lesson's revealed rather than found.
Yeah, and
don't seek it.
No.
You just allow it to arise to us. And that's when I think about that, what you said there, Louise, before we just go back to something Grace has said. I remember when I wrote the book, Women, Money and Intimacy, I knew that I had to write it as a result of my journaling. And what I discovered throughout the process of that whole journaling experience, which became the book, was I decided at a really young age that men in my life that I loved would abandon me. And so I created experiences for years and years of these men disappearing from my life, going away and abandoning me. And then when James and I were on that path as well. And, he was leaving me to go to war. And when he left, I just thought, I don't know if I ever want to see him again. And so
we weren't really friends too by the time I left. We're emotionally caged beings cohabitating, is what I'd say, on the way to a divorce.
With a baby.
With a baby.
And so
and a dog.
When he left, I was really wanting, and so I took responsibility in my world for creating him being hit by a bomb. But what I discovered throughout the process of my journaling and my being in stillness and my crying and my releasing was that he didn't abandon me. And so throughout the process of healing myself while he was away and connecting with my own inner masculine and creating that flow, I then, and not abandoning myself, which I'd done in the past because I ran away when things were difficult for me. But I couldn't run away because I had a baby and a dog. And so I couldn't run away from my life. I had to show up for myself. And I was the only one that was going to show up for myself. And as a result, he didn't die and he came home. So he didn't abandon me. My masculine came home, and yet he was broken and he was tired and he was exhausted, but so was I. And that was just a reflection of me, but he didn't abandon me. And all of that insight only came as a result of me taking the space and creating the stillness and going, what was the purpose? In 2007, that happened in 2012, and the lesson only came in 2013. So 7 years, pretty much 6 or 7 years after the event, was when I got the lesson for me after all of that experience. So, and the lesson is revealed as all we have to do is place the intention upon knowing what it is for us and how it's related to our purpose, and it becomes obvious and we become aware of it.
Grace, your issue is not sadness. Yeah. So when it comes up, sadness is one of the easiest emotions for women to go to. Yeah,
so just
just breathe, Grace. Just breathe. Just realize in this moment you're not alone. We're all there with you. Matter of fact, if you can, just start to feel some hands now start to rest on your shoulders. If you bring your awareness to it, you'll actually feel it. Now take a deep breath through the nose. Now allow yourself to feel the sadness. And as though you're sinking down, 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 like down into a pool, find yourself now come to a resting point at the bottom of the sadness. Still allow yourself to be there. Just keep breathing. You're fine. Breathe. And now, as though trapdoors are opening up below you, allow yourself to drop down through the sadness. You'll start to feel something else. It'll be a different sensation. You might not like the sensation, but that doesn't matter. Just acknowledge the sensation. And in this moment, you may or may not know what it is. It doesn't matter if you do. It doesn't matter if you don't. Just allow yourself to feel it. And again, you're in a pool. Feel yourself going down, 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 resting on the bottom. And now you're completely immersed in this feeling. Now with a deep breath, again, feel trapdoors open up. And feel yourself go down again. down through that feeling to the next feeling. Down, down, down. Now nod your head this way if it's a positive feeling, cross your head this way if it's an uncomfortable feeling. Yeah, it's because you're still here. Do you know how beautiful you are? You just deflected that comment. You didn't receive it. I'm going to say it again, but before I do, take a deep breath. Do you know how beautiful you are? You completely owned that one. Good as what you called an empath.
Yeah.
So at a very young age, something would have happened, and I only know a tiny little bit about your family history, and only from one person. So I don't credit myself with knowing anything about you or anything like you've gone through. But something turbulent happened with a lot of stuff going on around with mum and dad, etc., and your siblings, and you were feeling their feelings, not yours. And because you're an empath and a beautiful heart, you want to heal those feelings for other people. But when you don't know how to heal them, they become painful, and they become really painful. And so what do? I can't stand it anymore. I'm going to have to numb myself. It happens to so many empaths. And one of the things to live our purpose in life is to allow ourselves to go through down into the pain. Now, what I just did before is going to be on this recording ad nauseum, and I've got no idea of the time. Correction, it'll be around the 27-minute mark of this recording. You can go to that point and just hear my voice bring you down. Okay? So the other thing about my voice is that some people would call it frequency healing. So you can tune into my voice and it will help you just guide down through a process and just go deeper into the emotion. But the really key thing about it is don't judge it, don't go for the lesson. Just initially, it's an experience. Just allow yourself to feel these different types of emotions. And it's challenging. Hey, hell yeah.
It is challenging. And yeah, obviously, Grace, you've mentioned on the calls that you have done a lot of work around this. We also chatted when we were talking with Annabelle and Megan about this sadness and this grief, and sometimes there's so much there, or we know, as James talked about, this thing or these things, these traumatic experiences happened when we were little, and we don't even there's a fear in us to allow ourselves to completely go there, because if we go there, we're not sure we'll be able to get out. And so because we don't subconsciously, and this is subconsciously, this is not a conscious decision, because you've done lots of work and you know that you really would like this to move, subconsciously there's something there that's stopping me from going right to the bottom. And so what James was just doing then was helping you to just to tune into that. And the more that you allow yourself to listen to just that little snippet and keep going down, you will do it naturally. So your body will do it. It's not body. Trauma lies within your emotional and physical body. It doesn't lie within your mental body.
Which is why psychologically you might have heard, and I used the term before when I talked about emotional suppressive, you might have heard of a dissociative behaviour. In other words, it's like you're living life on the other side of a glass panel. And anyone who's been there knows it can freak the hell out of you, like really badly. But then sometimes it becomes a safety barrier. And I went through both. I had it being a safety barrier and I had it being a really freaky experience. And interestingly enough, it could be both at once. So the reason why we'll have a dissociative behavior is the emotional suppression within our body, our physical body, at a cellular level, means that our psyche will literally jump out and we'll feel ungrounded. We'll often trip up on things. Our memory will be slack. We'll struggle with multitasking, or we'll have to just constantly be busy. We'll feel very heady. They're just symptoms of the larger issue. The actual healing requires a merging of the heart and the mind, the psyche coming back into the body first. And this is why catharsis used properly. Catharsis has to be done properly. And the key to catharsis, and there are many scientific studies stipulating the negative effects of catharsis, particularly anger catharsis. And I completely agree with those scientific studies because of the way the studies were done. I don't agree with their complete finding, but I agree with why they've come to that conclusion because of the way the study was done. Catharsis in separation from the mental movie that's running that causes the emotion to flow, which is why we talked about the reframing. So if you've got big issues with dad and you're punching the crap out of a pillow going, I hate you, dad, I hate you, dad, I hate you, dad, I hate you, dad, all you're doing is creating a neural network within your brain and mind connection that becomes from a 60 kilometre an hour country road to 110 kilometre an hour freeway to hate dad even more. The trick with catharsis done properly is you must go into you can use dad initially, bring him up and go and speak what it is in that moment is your truth. You know, I hate you, dad. Cool. Feel the anger. Once the anger has come up, let dad go and allow yourself to be immersed in the anger and get it out into a cushion, or allow yourself to go deep into the sadness and allow yourself to come out, or allow yourself to go deep into the fear. Whatever the emotion is, allow yourself to go deep into the emotion, not the mental picture. You're separating. And then once the emotion is allowed to flow, we can come back and reframe. Remember the forgiveness equation, the glass is reframing, the bucket, and then the gift. And so it's not that clinical, like one after the other after the other. It generally ain't that. It's generally all over the shop like a flight path of a blowfly. And but when you do that and you allow that catharsis to occur, you'll naturally feel better. And in that moment, that's all that's necessary. That feeling of relief, that's all that's necessary. You don't need the lesson right away. Yeah. So just allowing that to happen. And for you, it's not sadness at all. I'm specifically talking to Grace here. Matter of fact, tuning into a few of you, it's not sadness.
There's probably some sadness there.
Well, there is, but the sadness sits on the top of, for women in Australian society, it's more socially accepted to cry than it is to get angry, or less so scared. You're okay to be scared because you're meant to have men, and men are meant to be okay. They're not allowed to feel sad or scared. They're allowed to feel angry. That's social conditioning. So often when a woman, and for many women on this call will probably remember a situation when you were angry, you started having tears come, because that channel is open. So that emotion has to find a channel. That's why I asked what channels are open. Because if you suppressed one emotion, you've locked it off because of a decision within your subconscious mind, that energy's got to flow somewhere and it will go for another channel. Yeah, which is why quite regularly dads in playgrounds that get really scared about what their children will do will start to yell and get angry. They're not angry, they're actually scared. So, and many people don't even understand that's going on because they don't have the fidelity of understanding of the energy flowing through them.
Additionally, at a macrocosm level, so when you look at society, there's a lot of grief right now. There's a lot of things falling apart. There's a lot of systems falling apart. There's a lot of people, again, look at the bushfires. There's a lot of people in a lot of pain. And James mentioned at the start that you're an empath, and that pretty much probably everyone that's here with us in this moment and listening afterwards is an empath. And so we feel the collective energy. And so if we haven't cleared those buckets within us, that collective energy is just going to add to that. So the sadness and the grief that's in our society right now will trigger because we're not completely clear. So again, that's the stillness and switching off as best you can. Just because you switch off from the news and don't watch what's going on with the fires 24 hours a day doesn't mean that you're not caring about those people. When James was in Iraq, I decided that I would never. I used to watch the news like religiously. I'd watch the Channel 7 news. Then I'd watch the ABC, the SBS news. Then I'd watch the ABC news. That was what I did. And when James went to Iraq, I realized I need to switch off. I need to stop watching this because this is not what I need to hear. And when we're going deeper and deeper into this work, we don't need to hear all of that fear and that grief and all of that that's going on out there, because we know it's going on out there. What we do is we set the intention of love and compassion, and that's what we put out into the world. And we go in here and we go, right, how can I create more love and compassion for myself?
So it's been a brilliant start to setting up, moving forward, getting focused and clear on 2020, because you haven't figured it out. This is life. That we're going to experience these things constantly. So it's not not if they will occur, it's when they'll occur. And it's having that literacy, but also it's having the integrity of self to realize that I need to prioritize myself in this moment.
Mm.
And therefore I need to say no to this or no to that or yes to this, because I know yes to this means that that's going to help me move through it, or no to that because at the moment I just need to be on my own.
And that's Maureen said that she loves how Annabelle's and Meg's practices have just brought in little things at a time. So just taking 5 minutes to ground and connect to the earth. And these are the little things that we're talking about.
Mm. And yet Maureen's even connected with remembering that moment as a child. And so often, this is called inner child.
She got really angry and felt guilty for so long.
Yeah.
Just for those who aren't with us and are listening to the recording.
Yeah, sorry. So one of the things, there's a lot, I think I've mentioned before, masculine feminine work is so important, and understanding a divine union between the masculine and the feminine is an integration of parts into the whole. However, some of the deep work in the psyche, as Carl Jung would have said, is the inner child wound. The decisions we made before the age of 4 that have caused a lot of programming within us, which actually causes the dividing of the masculine and the feminine anyway. So if we don't go back into that place, then that schism stays apart for however long we do, until we don't actually go along. The big thing to remember, Kirsty mentioned it, I think in passing last or 2 sessions ago, when you do healing, you actually heal your genealogical line, your bloodline. Now, the ancients have known this for many, many eons, but science is actually now proving it within the DNA. So the Genome Project demonstrates that DNA is more like a series of light switches running down a strand. Yep. And you'll have a hell of a lot that have been turned on by your ancestry. Now, some of those that are turned on aren't necessarily the best for your evolution. So you can consciously intervene and turn them off. Your DNA is a blueprint, not a destiny. Yeah? And a blueprint can be shifted by conscious intervention. Now, again, the ancients have known this for many, many eons, which is why they were so rigid about ceremony and ritual, etc. And certain things. You talk to Aboriginals. If you're in the presence of Aborigines as a man and trying to talk female stuff with women, good luck. They'll shut you down. You won't do it, because that's not the place. And women, they get quite antsy if women try to intervene in men's stuff and talk men's rites of passage, etc. They will go to a certain point and shut down. There was a great insight program with that awesome lady, the redhead lady on ABC, I think it was at SBS, does the insight program, has a whole lot of people, and she leads this forum. And she ran one on rites of passage, had everyone from Arnie Rubinstein, lots of different people, and to an Aboriginal group there as well. And it was really interesting to watch the anger in the Aboriginal men when she was talking about it, because she was wanting them to go further, and they were just saying, no, can't do that in this forum. And the reason is because they have a whole series of architecture which helps them exist. And they've been existing for over 100,000 years. So, they got...
One thing you just said there, which I wanted to clarify, was conscious intervention. So James talked about the inner child wound and consciously intervening so that we can create something different. So, yes, conscious intervention. That means placing an intention on releasing the need to have that decision rule us anymore. Conscious intervention doesn't mean that we need to know how that happens and that we need to know the answer. Conscious intervention simply means that we have the intention and we take the actions that can help us create something new. And then, again, like the answer being revealed rather than seeking it, it's the same thing. We start taking the actions and then we realize I'm creating something new. I'm moving on the path of creating something new. Because if I stay back here and I try to fix and I continually try to go inside and I try to fix, I used to get, after a few years, I started to get really cranky at James needing to go inside and fix this. If I stay here, I'm just staying stuck in the past. I'm staying stuck in this wound that's holding me stuck. And it's consciously holding me stuck because I'm consciously going in and I'm going, I need to figure this out. I need to get the answers.
We're empowering the problem.
We don't need to get the answers. And it's really hard for some of us to swallow is we don't actually need to have the answers. What we need to do is we need to give our soul the credit because it knows. Our soul already knows. As long as we have the intention and we walk on that path by taking the little actions, we will create something new.
Ownership's key. So own it and then do what you need to do it. And I'll challenge what Kirst said by saying, if you want to go and you want to spend 10 days in silent retreat over one issue, go right ahead, do it, because it's your path. And if you don't, then don't. The key to Kirst, from what I just listened to you there, the key point is to empower yourself is just to own it and set the intention. And then the action is whatever feels right to you. In essence, there's no right and wrong.
There is no right and wrong.
So however you deal with it, it's however you deal with it.
Yeah, there is no right and wrong. And that's when we spend that time with ourselves. Even if I go into, which we've both done, if I go into silence for 10 days to, and look at my issues, I discover very quickly that there's a whole bunch of other stuff there. And because I'm sitting in stillness, I go heaps deeper and I get way more than I bargained for anyway. So we are, you guys, and I want to say this, you guys, because these core group of people that have been showing up here, you have taken a big step to already creating clarity for 2020 because you've showed up over the last 5 days. You've consistently showed up. We can see your little faces on the screen and you've participated and you've allowed yourself to set that structure.
John keeps like snoozing. Look at him.
He said he had an amazing meditation yesterday and got so much clarity. So we know John showed up. And you guys have set the structure. Everyone who decided to do this course and who is listening to this recording now, you've created this little structure. And remember, we talked about imposed discipline versus self-discipline. This is a form of self-discipline. You've said, right, I'm going to do this 5 days with these. So you've showed up. And you're setting the intention, you're taking the actions that can help you to create clarity.
So you've actually thrown this equation of the universe out a number of times without actually referring to it in any form of structure. So it doesn't slide past everyone's awareness, could you please mention the equation I'm talking about?
The equation is intention plus action equals outcome. It's really, really simple. Intention plus action equals outcome. So if I have an intention that is based upon my desires, and I go into stillness and I align my will with my highest will, I will receive what it is that I expect. It's really simple, except our mind wants to try and put all these expectations in, and our subconscious has all these limitations, and that's where the work's done. But the simplicity of this clarity is intention plus action equals outcome. There's a belief, a general belief, that when this is over, I will, and when I've done this, I'll be happy. You know, when I have something or when I've done something, I'll be happy.
For me to have this, I must do this, and therefore I'll be happy.
I'll be happy. Intention plus action flips that whole thing, and it says, how do I want to be? And therefore, if I know how I want to be, I'm going to do in accordance with that being, and then I'm going to have exactly what I want. This creates clarity. For us to do that, we need to know what's important to us. So when we are visioning, we talk about principles and values. And we talk about, okay, what are those things that are within me that I consider to be really important? And one way you can do this is...
Let's do an exercise.
Yeah, okay. Let's do an exercise.
So, you'll need a piece of paper and a pen.
Maureen says, yes, I get impatient and want to see results straight away. Immediate gratification is a well-known emotional patterning.
But the other thing is, from a mechanicalistic mind too, Maureen, and you understand what I mean by that, very left brain orientated, action therefore gets result. That's the way we've been programmed. The work that we're doing, whilst exceptionally tangible when you sit back and observe, which remember that is what science is, you can see results, but you won't necessarily see them straight up. James on the call mentioned the water hyacinth to me, which is a South American plant.
The what?
Water hyacinth.
I don't know.
It's a plant. If you just let me, I'll explain. So there's this plant, I'm pretty sure in South America, and it's from the hyacinth family. And it, with a lagoon, like over a period of around 30 days, it will take over the entire lagoon. And because of its, what it does is it deoxygenates the water, causing death of the fish population and everything else within it. So it basically suffocates the actual water system. Now, by the 28th day, though, there's still only a few water hyacinth, what look to be still only a few water hyacinth in the actual place. What they're doing is sending out tentacles and pollen and stuff like that, and polyps, I should say. And then within the space of a couple of days, all of a sudden, whoompa, the whole pond is covered in water hyacinth. So, and it's done its job. The thing that demonstrates is quite regularly, this is exactly what happens with, this inner work. We'll be plugging away, and we won't believe we'll be seeing any results. And then all of a sudden something will happen, and then another thing, and then another thing. And it starts to get a roll on. Now, that is one way it happens. If you talk to anyone who's been to some of our workshops, and James is another great example, I trust you don't mind if I use you. You've come off a couple of workshops, come off one workshop on a real high, come off a couple of other workshops on a real low. Doesn't matter. That's results either way. You're judging highs and lows. results have actually occurred. So, can you bring him up?
No, he's not there. He's driving.
He's driving.
Yeah.
Good, James. The fact that you're not there and you're driving, well done. But that actually, James is just one example of many, many people that they'll quite regularly, they'll get this rush out of an intense period of work. And then, hit about the 3-week mark and things start to level out, etc. So it can have that effect, or it can be the water hyacinth where it takes time, like a home loan, where realistically a 25-year home loan, you only start making inroads into the home loan within the last 5 years of paying it off, because for the rest of the previous time, you're actually paying off your interest. So this work can operate many, many different ways. And if we go in expecting and needing instant results, because we have that need, we actually program our mind not to see them. Because what we're actually fixated on is no result. Think about it.
The intention is on the no result. So remember, the intention is the outcome when we're taking the actions associated with the intention.
So for this one, you need a piece of paper. Right, straight column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And I just want to clarify as well, while people are doing that, is the actions are thoughts, words, and deeds. It's not just the doing. It's the way that we're thinking about it. That's still considered to be an action. When we bring awareness to the thoughts, we're bringing awareness to the actions. Yeah, we know you're there still. We know you're still there, Ali.
So take a deep breath, and I'm actually going to take you through a little activity. This is called a heart centering, and it's one of the links that I've actually, Kirsty's actually sent out to you. So if you're driving, don't do this activity.
Ali can do it.
Yeah, Ali can do it. So just to bring your attention to your breath in this moment. And as I sit here, just allow yourself to completely be. Accept every different aspect of myself. All the highs, the lows, the positives, the negatives, all the characteristics and traits, all my past and my future. Let's see if in this moment you can allow everything to be with you. The next in-breath, just breathe in and hold for a moment. And then on the exhale, just let go. Breathing in through the nose, holding at the top. Then on the exhale, just let go. Now change the breath as though you're breathing all the energy around you deep inside your heart space. Breathe it in, hold for a moment, and then let it go. When you let the breath go, let's see if you can relax a little bit more. Breathing into your heart space, holding for a moment, and then letting go. Now bring to mind someone you love, someone that brings magic to your world. See the look in their eye, the expression on their face. Feel their touch. Hear their voice. Now allow yourself to feel the love you have for this person. Allow it to flow through every vein in your body, from the top of your head to the tip of your toes. Now let this person go, knowing that this feeling came from within you and is there whenever you wish to tune in. With your eyes closed, just allow the 5 most important things in your life to come to mind. And as they come to mind, just write them down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They don't have to be ordered in any particular order. Just capture the 5 most important things. Give you a few moments to do that. And when you finish, just look up. I reckon we're done. Now, next, write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 below that list. And write the top 5 things that are consuming your time in life at the moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
People listening to the recording will be wondering what the heavy breathing is.
I could so go to many places because of that. Again, just look up when you're done.
It's good chasing.
There's some decent sized mug Grace has got.
Back to
I'm a bit jealous. Not that jealousy enters my mind, but she's got a cup of tea and I don't.
refer back to the life.
So now have a look at the top 5 and then compare them to the bottom 5 and have a look in the bottom 5, the ones that still align to the top 5. If they don't align to the top 5, either cross them out or put a question mark against them. For the question is, why are they so much time of your life?
Why are they taking so much time?
Why are they taking up so much time in your life? That really, really simple exercise is great to do quite regularly when you're getting caught up in life. But only one caveat on it. Are you ready to own it? Because if you're not ready to own it, it will smack you in the face and you will just go, ouch. And then you'll try and continue on in life. Now, who had 5 things completely aligned? Well, tell us how many things aligned and how many things did not align.
Yeah, in the chat box.
In the chat. 3 aligned, thanks, Louise. 2 aligned, thanks, Meg. 0. Nice one, Rhonda. They all aligned, Maureen. Nice. Had 2 of 3 aligned. Awesome, Big Ben. 2 aligned. James, all aligned. 4. Yeah. Thanks for answering for him too, Ali.
He's driving.
I understand. That's why I'm saying thank you. I just realised. Yeah, I don't understand that. I just realised. I didn't understand Maureen's comment.
Maureen wrote, just realised, hour. Look at them. She might have said how.
I look at them. 2 aligned, 2 somewhat aligned, and work takes the most time but doesn't so much align with anything. Gotcha.
How I look at them, yeah.
Yep, how I look at them. Awesome. So I was working with this two young guys actually that have been dragged out by a bloke. Now, the bloke happened to be the dad of one of them and the uncle of the other. And he said to them 2 days beforehand, mind you, he'd organised for me to go out with them like 2 months beforehand. He gave them 2 days' notice that they were simply going camping. He didn't tell them anything. So I'm out there for 3 days working with them, taking them through a warrior program. Sorry, 4 days. And after a day, one of them goes, can we just go and kick the footy for a bit? We're out in the bush. Like, we're camping, we're out in the bush. And I looked and I said, and it dawned on me, did your dad actually tell you at all what you were coming out here for? And he says, no, we were just coming out for a camp. You're asking us all these questions. And I wondered why it was taking me so long to crack into them, to get them to open up and everything like this. Anyway, one of the guys, he was doing nursing as a degree. He'd failed 5 out of his 6 subjects. He was working at Woolworths packing shelves. In the end, I said, so do you like nursing? He says, yeah, I love nursing. I said, well, do you want to keep doing it? He says, yeah, but I'm just looking down the barrel of being thrown out. And I said, cool. So we went through and I got him to visualize why he wanted to be a nurse. And he came to this one picture of standing beside a bed with a person who was really sick and just being able to help them get out of the hospital and never have to come back. So we then dissected the 5 subjects that he'd actually failed. The first one was nutrition. So I said to him, if you are standing beside the bed and that person's really overweight, what would knowledge of nutrition help you with? And he started rattling all this stuff off. And I said, so does that give you a taste of what the knowledge of nutrition you can have? And he says, yeah, but it also shows gaps in my knowledge too, that I've got a thirst now to find out because of working with this person. So I said, cool. And he was coming up to his exams and I said, right, so what are you going to do? What's your visioning for your subjects? And he said, he said, I want a 75% point average halfway through the semester and a 65% point average at the end of the semester. Now, just pick up on those their pattern there anyway. But I said, cool. Remembering you control 3 things, your thoughts, your words, your deeds. Who controls you getting 75% average? And he says, I do. And I said, no, you don't. And he's gone, yes, I do. It's all about how much I study. And I said, brother, unless it's complete multiple choice examination, which I haven't seen it, and I've done many examinations, I haven't seen one. You have an examiner who actually holds whether or not you get what mark you get because of multiple, paragraph answers, short answer questions, essays, etc. That is all discerned by an assessor. In other words, you are giving the power of control over your success criteria for your university to another person outside your thoughts, your words, your deeds. Those listening to this story, can you understand why pre-examination stress is so high? We've set the whole thing up, completely disempowering our people going into examination. Just think about that. Anyway, so I said to him, how can we pull back your thoughts, your words, your deeds? How can you control this? And he says, well, I do control how much you study. And I said, yeah, exactly right. So what I got him to do is, if you've ever seen one of these courses, at the front end, they'll have their assessment, what they actually review of their assessment criteria or subject matter knowledge that they want you to cover in the actual program. And it's generally a page or 2. And I got him to run through the entire list and go back to standing beside the person in bed and looking at all these aspects of the subject of nutrition to work out how it would help him when he's there. And so I said, what do you need to know to be confident, capable, and credible beside the bed with this patient in? And from that, he then structured a study regime. It wasn't like a hodgepodge, and it wasn't just studying for an examination. It was specifically tailored to him and his vision. He walks out of the examinations, turns to me and says, I've never felt so good in an examination before. By the way, I got 95%. The Army then, he went for an Army scholarship, and they looked at him after 18 months. And he had high distinctions for the last 2 semesters. But the first semester, he'd obviously failed 5 out of 6. So you can imagine the guy in the military going, dude, what's going on here? And he told them, he said, well, actually, I met one of your old brethren and he helped me and now I'm doing this. And they said, go back, we want to see another 12 months of you doing this. That was a very stupid move by the military because he's sailing now and doing so many things out in there. He's an incredible athlete and excelling in so many different areas. And the military actually lost a great recruit right then and there. But the whole point of the story is when we vision and when we align, and we align the vision to what's really most important to us, a path comes. And it has to be controlled by our thoughts.
Revealed. I'm using Louise's word.
Oh, I like
such an awesome word.
Yeah.
It's revealed.
It's really cool. The mystics talk about revealing as well. So the thoughts, the words, and the deeds are really, really pivotal. Now, the other aspect of that story is he was packing shelves at Woolworths. And he hated getting out of bed in the morning to get the money. The only reason why he was doing it was to pay his way through university. So I said, why don't you go out there and see if you can find a job which is in line with standing at a bedside helping someone. In other words, helping. I ended up getting a job 3 days a week with high, I'm going to use a poor term here, but I don't know how else to use it, high maintenance students that have forms of critical disabilities at school. He became one of their carers and was getting paid 3 days a week to help these people go around to places like Luna Park and do all these other. He texted me from Luna Park one day saying, hey, geez, I'm getting paid for this shit. In other words, he found a job that was in line with the way where he wanted to go. In every moment, he started to align every aspect of his being to his desired expression of himself.
I also think that Grace's comment about work takes the most time but doesn't so much align with anything is a really important thing to discuss, because I don't think that that's uncommon. I think that there's probably a lot of people that would have that same, maybe even more people listening to this recording that will have the same thing going on for them. I liken it to, our society is more and more of us are waking up and we're seeing how much the earth's been pillaged, how much it's been raped, and we look at alternative ways to do things, use less plastic bags. Everyone's aware of things need to change. And
New Zealand evidently are going to packageless shopping centres, supermarkets. They're taking all the packaging out of fruit and veg.
So, and that's, so that's awesome. That's a big corporation's doing something, which is great. And so, but it is for us, we can't just, we actually need to get around. So we need to drive our cars. So these things, so I need to go to work. You say it doesn't really align with something. Well, it aligns with something because you're doing it. So the more that I can do more of these things and spend more time and awareness with these things that do align, the more that I will create more greater alignment. And that path, as James said, the path that I'm supposed to be on will reveal itself more and more to me. But if I keep saying I'm working so I don't have the time, then I'm keeping myself stuck and I'm making excuses. But if I go, all right, I know that I need to keep working for now, but I know that I want to go on a different path. Awesome. I've got these two things that align and I've got these two other things that somewhat align. So how about I bring those things more into alignment and I allow things to naturally improve for me from there.
It's also, remember that conversation you had with that Lieutenant Colonel who was...
So Grace has just said that she took 3 months off work because she was burned out, and then she's only be back 2 days a week. And so she's saying that there's resistance to go back for more, and that's fine. So feel the resistance, and allow the stuff to come up. So remember, we've talked about the beliefs, the subconscious programs. Go back to session 1 and 2. There's so much information in there. We've talked about all of those things. You're actually on the path of shifting. And when we're on the path of shifting, there's a big threat there, our mind. So we will resist. Our body will resist with all its might, but you're actually taking those steps. And that there's probably, as Maureen's beautifully articulated, there's an immediate gratification of, I want things to show up for me really quickly, but you're actually doing the things that need to be done so that you can have what you want. And it's releasing that expectation of how it's supposed to happen.
And remember that story of that lady who was a commanding officer at the Australian Defence Force Academy, and you were having a chat with her over a drink? Do you remember it or not? Natalie Fox, isn't it?
Yeah, sort of.
So,
but what was
Kirst was having a conversation with this lady, and she was feeling really time pressured because she was the commanding officer of the Defence Force University called ADFA, Australian Defence Force University, and she was a mum, a wife, and doing this stuff, and she just felt really time poor. I use that term with caution. So, and you'll understand why when you get the time video. But the point that Kirst helped her understand was she really, really loved going to work. Like, she was really passionate about it. And so by flicking the way she perceived work, she actually empowered herself by realizing that is her self-time. So it's not quite regularly, we're doing the right thing. It's the way we're looking at the thing we're doing. Kirst didn't like it too much when I used to mow the lawn a lot, because I'd come in off the ride-on mower with another brilliant idea that we were going to go out and do massive things in the world. This became constant. And one day this thing called the Put Your Hand Up campaign happened. And we ended up doing about 25 different workshops around Australia from Cairns to Perth. We started by doing, I think it was 11 workshops in 8 weeks from Cairns to Perth. And we let go of the house we were in, put everything into storage. We had no financial backing, and everything was going to just be by donation. And so the whole model, by the way, if you're going a business term, would be therefore predicated on numbers through the door. We still didn't have a massive following base or anything like this, and this was quite new. So anyway, we get to Perth, which is halfway through the tour, funnily enough, the other side of Australia. And we just dropped the girls at my mum's place in Victoria, and we were like financially strapped. We were really, really struggling. And I say struggling because it was struggling.
It was struggling, yeah.
And we're walking down the street and going to have a coffee because I had some coins in my pocket and I could pay for a coffee. And we're doing all this work, which was constantly helping these people coming in the door. And the results were there. The results were categorical from the way they'd walk into the room and the way they'd leave the room. There was no way that I couldn't see the effect of my work. And I'm beyond the point of realizing the effect that I have. It took me a long time to realize how good I am at what I do, and to own that with humility and gratitude for the gifts that I've been given, because I hated arrogance for so long and I was in an arrogant culture. So it took me a long time to come to a place where I know what I do and I'm blessed with gifts. So I had that, and I saw the effect on the people in the door, but I also saw the declining bank account. And not only that, Kirst was really, really stressed about it. And she asked me the question, going back to a lesson about masculine and feminine. Masculine sets the direction, and my masculine had come off the ride-on mower setting the direction. She said, are we doing the right thing? And I took the question on notice. I did not give her a straight answer. So I went and I actually sat with it, and I meditated deep inside myself to reflect on many different areas. No, I didn't go there for 3 hours or whatever. It didn't take me that long, because I realized all I needed to do was go still. And once in the stillness, I realized, yes, we were doing the right thing. But then I asked the next question. So why do I feel like I feel? And I said, well, how do you feel? And I owned how I felt. And it was like my wings had been clipped. Like I was being strangled. I was being suffocated. Like my freedom had been taken away from me. Now, men particularly, freedom is a principle of most men, actually all men, it's whether or not they realize it or not. Yes, men and women will often have the freedom principle, but in your outward expression, it comes in more drastically with men. If men feel that their wings are being clipped because of a belief that they have to provide, what happens is part of them dies inside, and it becomes a real struggle. And I looked at myself and went, holy cow, I know that from so many different aspects. And that's exactly what I was feeling. I felt that my wings were being clipped. I felt that we were doing it on our own. It was just Kirsten and I felt the support of Kirsten. I constantly did, but I still felt isolated and I didn't feel the support. And I realized this was a whole mind shift. It was just me and the way I was approaching it. Funny enough, then the RACV club in the middle of Melbourne puts us up for a night for the Victorian one. RSL Victoria puts us in their Victorian headquarters, and everything started to flow coming back from Perth. Why? Because we didn't change what we were doing. The Put Your Hand Up campaign still had another 5 or so workshops to roll out. It was completely the paradigm of approach that we had to doing what we were doing that shifted and everything opened up.
It was.
And funny enough, to complete that story, the Put Your Hand Up had to do last year. Why? Because it was born out of a desire to help victim consciousness. And so I was still playing out a rescuer in me. That whole campaign could only ever get to a certain level. And when I realized that, I knew it had to die. But it birthed something. So cycles, harmonic cycles.
That story, Meg's made a beautiful comment, which a couple of people said they relate to. Rhonda said she relates to it, and I'm sure that others would as well. But Meg said, I realise I spend more time worrying about the things I want than being the things I want. And in that story that James just gave, you can see that I was doing exactly that same thing, Meg. I was worrying about, what's going to happen after Perth. And because I was, I was looking after all of the back end and holding this space, doing the feminine, holding the space. But I was worrying about the future and worrying about how we're going to get to this next one and how we're going to do this. And so that's the intention that I'm placing out. I'm placing out a negative intention. I'm placing energy. I'm giving energy constantly to what I don't want because I'm worrying about it rather than going, okay, yes, we are doing the right thing. And we've got so much evidence to show that firstly, we're doing the right thing. And secondly, we're so supported. We've been able to do everything that we wanted to do, and we've been completely supported in that. So there's no evidence to show that when I take the next step, I'm not going to be supported. And so it's constantly reaffirming that to myself. And that is the little tweaking that constantly happens. And I always say it's a vigilance. It's a vigilance in the mind of recognizing that my mind, okay, stop, just pull it back to this present moment. And it sounds like it's idealistic, but it's actually real because we've already said it. The only moment that matters is now. And in this moment, am I safe? Yes. In this moment, do I have everything I need? Yes, I do. Okay, cool. Let me just take a breath and be in this moment for a minute and take the next step from this moment with all of my energy gathered in this moment, which means that I'll take all of that energy into the next moment.
One of the things, there's a couple of things that before we get into the big exercise that we're going to leave you with, which is where this conversation has been leading to. And I recommend you set aside an afternoon to actually reflect on it. And I'll put it together specifically to help you look at all aspects of your life so that you can bring together a united vision. One of the things that the 1990s and the 2000s gifted us was a belief that work-life are separate. And you know this because you've heard the term work-life balance. What's coming in the 2020s now, and it took a hiatus of the 2010s, is
now we're in the 20s.
Yeah, is we needed to go through the astronomical levels of depression, of suicide, and of alienation, the feeling of alienation and isolation, to realise that life and work are actually the same thing. We cannot separate the two, because the only person in absolutely every single conversation and situation of your life is you. Just think about the power of that statement. Mm-hmm. The only person in every single situation and conversation of your life is
And Rhonda made a beautiful comment to me yesterday, and I'm sure she wouldn't mind me sharing that she was watching her thoughts, and she was looking at them as separate to herself, but her body was responding. And it was a great example of, we think that we try to separate parts of ourselves from each other. Now, she might not have meant that, but when I read it, I saw it as, yes, I'm trying to separate, because I've done that before as well. I'm trying to separate these parts of myself. And what happens when we're separating these parts of ourselves is we're not accepting ourselves as a whole being. So we're not allowing, it's like I'm shutting this part off because it's not okay. We're not allowing that thing to actually be part of me. So even if it's saying something that I don't like, it's okay. It's actually still part of me. And it just means that I've got more love to give it. I don't want to push it away anymore. I just want to give it more love. And because that's how it starts to feel safe.
So a couple of things, when you're visioning and you're developing this clarity is coming to you. The fifth chakra, our throat, its color is sky blue, but it has 4 sutras. The first one is creativity. Now, just think about it. The way that in the Bible, in the beginning was the word. If you want me to go into the sacred geometric patterns of what that actually means, it means vibration and going on from there. I'm not going to go down that road right now, but the word is pivotal. So it's expression. This building was first an expression of someone before to an architect, who then took a pencil and put it onto a drawing to a series of builders who constructed this great place. So it was a sequence, but it started with a thought and then went from the word. The word is really, really pivotal. When a person feels that their voice has been shut down, part of them will die, and they'll struggle and they'll fight for that, and they'll have to have the last word, or they'll become passive aggressive, and lots of other different things will happen. If you're in that situation, I recommend having a think about one thing. If you're not feeling heard, there's one person who's not listening. Go back to that point I made about every single conversation in your life has one person in it. So the thing about the 4 sutras is it's creativity, affluence, which is, the ability to generate the energy of creation, or wealth or money, whichever level of consciousness you're on that. Then it's abundance. Now, the 4th and the most beautiful, and the earth element, in other words, the grounding sutra of the 3, is discernment. So just because we've got an abundance out there doesn't mean to say you have to use it all. Just because there's an abundance of food around doesn't mean to say you have to eat it all, put it on your plate. And this is something one of my children is still learning. But the thing is, discernment is such a beautiful thing. And it is a really, by nature, a beautiful human characteristic. And to go back to what Kirsty's saying about, there's a lot of social anomalies out there, social imbalance in our communities and society at the moment. One of the reasons is because we're missing those 4 sutras: creativity, affluence, abundance, and discernment.
So discernment actually creates abundance. Yeah. So it's when we are so clear about what's important to us, and we discern our choices in accordance with that, we create abundance.
So that was one point that I wanted to make. And the second one is goals. Like, we don't really talk goals too much. But
and I just wanted to just interrupt for a second. We're going to send them the clarity of vision exercise. We're going to do a clarity of vision so that they can, to help them get an even greater idea of what's more important for them.
The one I did up?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we will attach that to this next email, and we will also put it onto the resources page for everybody.
Epic. It's a really good exercise if you do it deeply. And it will take you some time to do it properly and deeply, but I recommend you do, because it takes you through all the fundamental steps to build an actual vision, rather than just going haphazard and getting a brilliant idea. That's not visioning. Having brilliant ideas happens, any moment you want to have a brilliant idea. Visioning is very, very different. Yeah.
We've given you guys we've given you a lot of information, and you've already done a lot of work. So you've actually got everything you need to take the next level of the visioning. So we can give you this exercise, but you're the ones who need to do it. And everyone, you all know that.
So there's one thing to do with goals that I want to mention. Lots of people will talk goals. You'll hear about SMART goals. You'll hear about goal setting. Lots of different stuff on it. We don't really work too much in goal setting. I can help people with it. We work on direction setting. And the reason for that is because goals can be as toxic as they can be. And here's the reason why. If you set yourself up to succeed in a goal, but haven't done the emotional work to actually release the subconscious programs which are stopping that goal achieve, you won't achieve the goal, and you'll cement the subconscious programs as truth, as fact for yourself. Great example. I'm sitting on a post meditating in a lotus position going, I'm affluent, I'm abundant, I've got, $10,000 passive income coming in every week. I've got everything I want. I'm living in a penthouse apartment in the Q1 and in Broadbeach on the Gold Coast, and I'm now walking down the supermarket. Holy shit, where's the money to pay that bill? Who put the price of bloody Stone and Wood beer up that much? That's just crazy talk. Oh shit, I've got a parking fine. The registration's in the tellers. You get my point. You've gone from this one position to this other position, which is like categorically the absolute antithesis of. So if you want to do goals, make sure that you do the associated emotional clearing work in line with the achievement of the goal.
We've worked with quite a lot of people over the last 10 years that have started businesses, and they've had these goals and they've done these goals in these businesses, but the actual creation of the business wasn't aligned with what was important to them in the first place. And so the business starts to crumble because after not a very long period of time, because they didn't actually use these first principles in order to create the foundation for that business in the first place.
So your goal will never be, your true essence of the goal will never be to create a vision. Sorry, create a business. I'll say that again. Your goal will never be to create a business. Hold on, James, that's bullshit. Like, I've got a goal to create this, that, and the other. No. The business is a medium for you to articulate yourself as an expression into the world. It's a vehicle for you to express yourself in the world. So it is not the goal. The Resilient Leaders Foundation is a national charity within Australia, operating across all states, doing what we do. I had to have a constitution set up in legalese by a lawyer, which stipulates it's for harm prevention, suicide prevention, all negative language in the constitution, the supposed foundation document of the actual organisation. I said, please, can we flip that 180 degrees? Because I understand if I keep talking about suicide, that's putting in a person's mind. It's actually putting the picture and the approval to take my own life. I won't go too much down the psychology of that, but I want it in the positive. He says, I can't do that. Otherwise we won't be approved as a charity. We have to stipulate this. And I said, okay, what I'm going to write is I'm going to write a capstone document which sits over the top of my constitution. If the constitution ever attempts to violate the capstone document, I, as the executive director of the foundation, will move to have the foundation dissolved straight away. He said, you'd do that? I said, yes. He says, why? We've done all this work. You paid all this money to get it up and running. I said, the foundation is a vehicle. It's not what we do. What we do is important. How we do it's important in the moment, and moment to moment change. So if you are starting a business, remember, awesome, it's a vehicle. It's not the only vehicle. If you've got a young person who's wanting to get out of school and go and do something, cool. Are they interested in trade work? Trades are a vehicle. University is a vehicle.
Not something to fall back on.
As soon as you use the language fall back on something, you're immediately putting into a person's subconscious that they are a failure and they need a second option. Okay, so I know there's a lot of love given by parents and stuff. That's called projection. So with these goals, if you want to use goals, that's awesome. Make sure you understand the essence of what the goal's about. What are you getting from this goal? Now, that might sound really selfish and self-centered, etc. No, no, no. Understand what I'm truly saying. Is this goal giving you the ability to express your gifts into the world? It's one of probably the paramount question that you want to ask. Like, I just had one of my goals for my birthday was to get a thicknesser, a wood thicknesser. You put planks of wood through it and it planes it on both sides so they come out even. And you can then build stuff with it. It's an awesome tool. I probably understand most of you don't know what I'm talking about, but as soon as I put a piece of wood through this thicknesser, I had a bliss moment. It was just epic. The thing is that feeling and that ability to do the creation is what the thicknesser gives me. So I don't want the thicknesser. I want the feeling and that expression. Now, I can, in my workshop, get that feeling and that expression anytime without the thicknesser. Now, here's the kicker with goals. If you want to own a boat, go down to the local yacht club. That was yacht and local put together. Go down to the local yacht club and become a member. And every Saturday, go out and put the feeling of the yacht in your hands. Feel it, see it, sense it. Make your goal happen in this moment for you so you can feel it. Yeah, it's that sense of being one with that element or aspect of life, which is actually what you want from the goal.
When James was giving us an example before of sitting on the fence and meditating and imagining $10,000 passive income and an apartment in the Q1, that was actually
done that before.
That was actually a process that he and I went through, and we got embroiled, I guess, in the personal development world many years ago. And everyone said, if you're successful, then this is what you'll have. And so we were like, all right, well, I guess that's what we need to do. And then one day we woke up and we looked around and we went, we live in the middle of the bush on 10 acres of land, and like, why would we want to have an apartment in the middle of Surfers Paradise?
We've actually never lived in town since I left the military. We haven't lived in town. And so yeah, that was buying into another person's goals.
Buying into another person's goals, exactly. And so whenever go back to intention plus action equals outcome, whenever you're creating the goal, if you want to look at it as a goal, whenever you're creating the goal, make sure that you're creating it as you want it to be. So often when you ask people, what is it that you want? They'll say, I want a red car, but I don't want leather seats. So straight away, they've focused on the leather seats. Now, that's pretty cool. Like, you might end up getting a red car with leather seats, but you don't want, and this goes back to what Meg said, you don't want to have in your visioning, you don't want to have what you don't want. You actually want to allow yourself to imagine. Einstein said it, that imagination is your most powerful tool. You want to imagine your vision completely and wholly exactly as you would like it to be.
And the key to manifestation is emotion. And the actual specific emotion that manifests the quickest is excitement, which is really interesting because most of you as a child would have been told to stop, get overexcited, which is one of the reasons why quite regularly lots of people struggle to manifest, because they get themselves into an excitement and then subconsciously they shut down on that energy, which actually disrupts the flow of the actual creation. There's a thing called, there's actually 4 ways to look at the universe: scientifically, religiously, spiritually, or magically. Now, that term magic, just feel the word in the back of your subconscious. Some of you would have kicked back at it. Interestingly enough, the first 3 have the last one right through them. Magic is simply something that can't be explained by what we currently understand. Go to religion. Christ performed a series of miracles. What's a miracle? Something that we just don't currently understand. So as to be a magician, and the magician is an archetype in archetypal psychology or Jungian psychology, but to be a magician, you go through 4 phases. The first is the initiate, the second is the novice, the third is the adept, and then you become the magi. Now, interestingly enough, even at the, I won't use that finger. Even at the adept stage, what happens is a person is still focused on the achievement of the red car with the leather seats, like Kurt said. By the time they become a magi, There's an awesome movie you can get on YouTube. It's a slight teenage movie, and it's pretty old. It's got Sidney Poitier in it, I think he is. It's called Earthsea, and it's actually about it's a fantasy 2-part movie about, or TV series actually. I think it was a 2-part TV series about a young novice, really capable magician and his journey. It is laced with some incredible mystic lessons. Like when I watched it, I was astounded at what they've weaved through it. You can get it by just YouTubing Earthsea, or we might even be able to send you the link if you're interested. But that's the key thing is go back to discernment. If you're focusing on a red car with leather seats or a Q1 apartment, just have a think about that, where you're coming from, the motivation behind it.
Again, you ask the question, well, why do I want that? Why is that important to me? And go back to those 5 things. Every decision that I make is based upon those 5 things for me. And when an opportunity arises, it's either a big yes or a big no. And these days, if it's a big no, there is no chance that I'm going to do that. If it's not aligned with those 5 things, then that's it. That's me creating my own boundaries and allowing myself to stay aligned with what's most important to me. Now, when I know those 5 things so clearly, there may be situations that arise that in a moment don't necessarily look like they might be aligned with those 5 things. But I've got this strong feeling of, that there's a big yes. So I go a little bit deeper and go, well, how might this align with what's important to me? And I actually create that so that I can do that thing, because emotionally I have the feeling of, yes, I really want to do this. So if I really want to do this, there's actually something in me that connects with it and it is aligned with this particular goal or objective.
Go back to the Q1 example. Kirsten and I will always go back to the point there is no right or wrong. Q1 example is a great one. I have in our vision for Resilient Leaders Foundation, a aspect of that vision, which is a sanctuary somewhere around the southern Gold Coast, probably a penthouse, in which allows people who are doing the work to take their family and just be. And the foundation is custodian of that. Could be a penthouse, could be whatever. And just people can go for a week and just take their load off and, just allow themselves to be. And it just becomes a rotational thing, a haven for us. And our next part of our vision is to become custodians of a plot of land, in which allows us to run all the programs that we actually have, but more than that, to become a centre of collaboration.
At the same time, what we've done is, we've always had a large vision since we started learning, since James left the military. What we've had to do though is to pick out the little parts over the years of how we've actually been living that vision. And, even just sitting here talking to you guys, we're still living that vision because we're still doing the work that's aligned with that sanctuary. So it might not be in a particular physical space, but we're doing that work. And when we have people come to our home, we're not on the supposed place that we thought that we should be on, but we're on acres of land with this beautiful home that we share for people to heal. So we're still doing the work and we're still living the vision, not necessarily as our mind thinks it should happen in the massive overwhelming vision, but we're still doing it.
Another thing is that some of you in your visioning will have yourself positioned as a leader, and some of you will struggle with that position. Throw in the chat box if to you, because one of the things, like, for a long time, I've done quite a bit of leadership stuff. I've been in the leadership game for a little bit of time, and one of my biggest challenges has been owning the leadership that I have and my understanding of not only conceptual and theoretical understanding, but my practical ability to take that theory and put it into practice. But also then my ability to teach this stuff. So, for crying out loud, I've developed my own paradigm of leadership called harmonic leadership. So it took me 10 years outside the military to own that form of understanding. So much more comfortable with it post RLF. Legend Benny. And Benny B's like an awesome example of someone who, stepping into leadership space. The dude ran the first ever Southern men's gathering of people and had 40 men turn up in Adelaide. And he started from nothing. He got all these people around him, collaborated, set a vision, and holy cow, you should have heard the stories coming out of these men that walked away, the healing that was done. Why? Because he got off his ass. He didn't believe in himself. He didn't believe he could do it, but he did it anyway. And I think, Ben, you exactly agree with the way I referred to all that. But the thing is, I still want to see the thumb wrestle between you and Andrew when you come here, by the way. But the point I was going to make, thanks, about this leadership thing is, here's an exercise for you to do. Take a blank piece of paper and start from you being a young person and write down every single leadership experience you can remember. I wouldn't do it now because it will take you a little bit of time. I'll guarantee it. Write it all down. Every single leadership experience that you've ever done. Kirsty got me to do this when I was really feeling that I'd never actually done too much as a leader. I realised why I was approached by so many generals and asked not to leave the military, because I had more leadership and operational experience of leadership than anyone else in the same positions I had.
Meg and Grace have both made great comments. I find seeing myself as a leader in a leadership position difficult, and I balk at it. And Meg said, I have things to say, but putting it out there can be scary as a leader. I resonate 100% with both of you. For my entire life, I believed that I was a second place getter. So I even, from grade 1, I managed to put myself in a position where I was at school with Carla Gilbert, who, I don't know if any of you guys have heard of her, but she's like a world famous Iron Woman. So we were together at school from time to time. So for my whole school career, I came second to Carla. And so it became natural for me. I never saw myself as a leader. I was a vice captain at school. I was never a captain, and I never allowed myself to be in that leadership position. And then when I started doing this work, when I started to look at when I was told that I needed to look at leadership and leadership as a woman. And this was after I left the military. I realized how much I had actually been a leader. I was constantly put in leadership positions through my entire life, through school, through my army career. When I left the military, when I was working as a swim teacher, people saw me as a leader and looked to me. Now, and I always balked at it. Once I sat down and I did this exercise that James was talking about, and I did some really deep reflection, I realized that this was because I have high standards, and I have ability to be able to be self-disciplined and just do things that need to be done. And so leadership, we think we need to be standing out the front and we need to be telling everyone what to do and giving the direction. That's not leadership at all. Leadership is actually allowing ourselves to be in a space of doing what we know is right. It's not winning. It's providing an example to other people where other people look and go, yeah, I could do that. Or, yeah, okay, I might take something away from that, and I think that that's a good idea, so maybe I might give it a try.
Sometimes a leader's job is to actually let someone else win or lead. And one of the things, in the 10 years I've been out of the military and doing the work I've done, I've had guys that have dodged bombs and bullets with me get in touch with me and say, boss, we're just so impressed and humbled about what you're doing. They still call me boss. I'm really humbled, but they still. And in the military, that doesn't go to people. You don't get called boss. You have to earn that title.
I think the comments you made, leadership as being the one who does it all. Absolutely, that's how we've been taught to see is leadership as being the one who does it all. But then, and then there's another comment that seeing myself as a contributor rather than the expert helped me find the courage. At me, absolutely. Like when I realized that, wow, it's not actually what I say or what I do, it's how I be. That's me as a leader. It makes a massive difference.
Yeah, the art of delegation. If there's a parent, go back to, if you want to have a look at leadership and you're a parent, have a look at how well you delegate to your children and how well you're willing to actually put up with the shit they'll throw back in your face when you actually ask them to do something. And then you'll actually know, and then your tolerance at that as well. Because, a couple of key things, humility. The reason why people, they're not up there for leadership, the reason why they'll be given it Grace is mentioning a few things here, is because of humility. And people see that humility and they know the best leaders are the humble ones. There's a great book called Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. He mentions this lady who had conversations or dinners with 2 American presidents back to back one night, and then went to another dinner with another one the next night. And he was asking, what's the difference between the 2 presidents? And she said, well, the first one, I walked out of the room thinking he was the most intelligent man on the world. The second one, I walked out of the room thinking I was the most intelligent person on the planet. So just have a think about that one statement, and you can get an understanding of the character of the style of leader that there is. Now, there is, in leadership, there is so many different aspects to it. There is a requirement for, at times, to stand up and go, like this, do that, follow me right now. And there is a time to say absolutely nothing and let them to completely fall on their face. There's time for everything. And you can only understand that by coming to that place of stillness constantly, so that when in a situation where everything is going wrong, you're able to still come to that point of balance and see what needs to happen. And sometimes not even have the confidence that you'll know it's going to work, but have the trust that there's something out there that's got your back.
There was a blog post you did a little while ago. I think it was a blog post called Leaders Create Space.
Yeah.
And, leaders do create space. The first person that a leader needs to create space for is me. So you guys, again, you're showing up, you're allowing yourself that space, and that naturally impacts on the world. And create space for yourself and ask yourself these hard questions, and let yourself in your own time go deeper and deeper. Then you will discover that you've got more of a capacity to do the same for others.
Yeah. So the clarity vision exercise is a detailed exercise. It will take you through a series of activities to get you clear on and exploring what is really, really important to you. Because how can you vision without knowing what's really, really important to you? So spend the time up front in it. And then it moves more into having a look at about 5 areas of your life. And it asks you a series of questions about getting clear on what is really, really important to you in these areas of life. Reflect back on specifically the success work that you've already done, because you'll be able to have a look at that and bring a lot of that forward. But also, because of the time difference of when you did that and where you are now, you will also be able to see how you can tweak it, or how it's matured in your understanding of what you're actually trying to say. So bring that forward into the document to come to a point where you'll be able to go, right, 2020 and beyond and me. And this is where I'm moving. It's a really, really powerful document. Kirst mentioned that the forum will be open for the following week. Please continue, get involved in the forum if you want, if you feel that that's going to work with you. When you've got issues with the clarity of vision, you come and you hit a block. One of the first things that I would do is throw a question on the forum, or put it out that there's a block, and watch the group. I reckon, like, how many comments you've seen in the chat when someone said something, people are going, yeah, this is me. So by doing that, what you're actually doing is you're opening to a communion of knowledge. It's not just Kirst and myself, but a communion of knowledge. And, we'll work over the next 7 days. That said, we're not the type of people who, whilst the forum will close in 7 days, we're not the type of people to say, piss off when you email us and say, listen, I've just got to this thing and I've got this challenge. I actually like those emails. So, and I sit and I do. I sit and I actually meditate into the question and the language that the person's using, and I spend time in formulating a response so that I feel it will be of best help to a person. But be aware, I don't pull punches. My job as a facilitator is to call the shit as the shit is. I'm not afraid of shit anymore. Been in enough of my own to realize that I can actually get out of it. And it smells a bit. Yes, I completely understand that. I clean up the dog shit all the time. So, it's a process and moving forward. Some of you may want to do some more work with us. That's cool. We run everything from a 12-month master's program, which is, some of you are actually on this program, are part of it. A couple of you actually are coming next week to the final workshop of 4 called You as the Creator, which is a bit excited because I get to go into my mystical, all the different forms of understanding the universe and help a person understand themselves a bit better. there's that, or there's work with, you know, we might resonate. If we've resonated in part with you and you got a bit out of it, then possibly find someone else who you really resonate with. Either with going through the emotional stuff, I found that I needed to find someone I could really open up to, that I could really feel I could trust, because I had some deep shit there, man, like some really deep, dark shit. And it's not there anymore. And the only reason why it's not there is because I had the courage to actually go there, but I had the courage to ask for help. And I had an amazing support network that was always there, never left me. I just couldn't see it until Kirsty actually kicked me in the balls by saying, if you don't get help, I'm going to take the girls and we're going to go.
I didn't actually kick you.
Luckily. But anyway, but for a bloke, that's kicking, you know, metaphorically in the proverbial. But anyway, so you know, she put everything in her life on the line and made sure I knew where I was. And that was 10 years ago. And we can't explain the difference but in our relationship. There was no reason why we were together 10 years ago. Well, there was. We just didn't see it. There's every reason why we're still together today. But the two of us are even more comfortable in knowing that tomorrow Kirsty might choose to leave me. And I know I'm okay. But what I'm even more grateful for about right now, and even more humble, is she woke up this morning wanting to be lying next to me. And that's cool. I don't need her in my life. I want her in my life. So it's a journey for you. You know, 2020 is the start of something awesome, but at the same time, it's still a progression of life. Nothing changes. One of the first things I say to people when they come into a house on a 4-day retreat, it's like, this is not different to life. It is life, you know. So I really recommend have a look at your support network around you. If your support network is actually taking you away from where you want to be, who you want to be, and what you want to achieve, then I've got to ask you the question, why are they your support network? What subconscious belief or program do you have currently running that needs to sabotage yourself about the people you're hanging out with? Robert Kiyosaki, in his book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, it talks about the 5 people you hang around with, put their income down and then average it, and that will be your income. It's the top, you know, your financial success is the equivalent of the top 5 people you hang around. But it's actually not just that. He's using an old adage which has been from sages of old. It's the top 5 people you hang around with are your standpoint on life. So if you want to get a little bit uncomfortable with life, hang around with people that make you a little bit uncomfortable in a few areas. That's what we did. And
just to reiterate, because it's been said on the chat box in this call, it's the little things every day. You know, James said that I woke up this morning and chose him. We do. We wake up every single day and we choose each other. We choose to live the life that we live. We choose to live the life that we live each day. So it's the little things. It's not that big overwhelming vision that counts. It's the little things that are aligned with that vision that count. They're actually the only things that count. And just remember that when I bring all of my energy into this moment, I take all of my energy into the next moment and the next and the next. And each moment, when I bring my energy into this moment, I take that full energy into the next moment. One thing that I wanted to mention was that for those who had specific questions about relationship, tomorrow we're on a call with our friends in the States, Sandra and Alan. We've done a number of radio calls with them over the last few years, but this time we're specifically talking about our relationship, how we came together 21 years ago, and how we've allowed ourselves to move together over the years. So if you want to listen to that, that might be really helpful for you guys as well. That's at 9 a.m. our time tomorrow. I'll include that link in the email too, so that if people want to listen, and they also have, and you can listen on iHeartRadio, but they also have their links there on their website, continued forevermore as well. So yeah, Meg said, I'm feeling more comfortable with a set definition. Awesome. I don't need to be loud and proud in how I lead because it isn't my authentic self. And that's the same as success, Meg. It's how do I define it and what's important to me, because that makes me a leader and that makes me successful.
So I want to leave you with one parting thing about visioning. Lots of people need to have a really crystal clear vision, and they need to articulate exactly where it will be and what will happen and the emotion and everything to it. That is certainly one way of doing it. You'll often find that they've got a perfectionist streak to them. Other people are very happy with realizing their vision is moment by moment, and they know the rough direction that they're traveling, but they're more comfortable in letting the direction unfold.
For instance, my vision is lots of green and blue. That's my vision for my life. Lots of green and blue.
Yeah. So the next step, and that allows the universe to play with you. You actually get more playful when you're doing that. The future casting to specifics, awesome. You're that type of person, go for it. You know, work out what works best for you. But also remember that there's always another way of doing it. And for this person, always remember there's another way of doing it. I'm not saying either is right or wrong, but whatever you do in the moment will be right for you.
So we trust, we hope and trust, and we're so grateful that you guys have all joined us, that you have taken what you need away from this course to take the next step. Please go back. There's so much that we've included in the emails. Once everything's up on the resources page, we will send out an email to let you know as well, and it will be easy access for you over the next forever, for as long as you want to use it, because once you've got that link to that page, you guys will be able to use it for as long as you want to use it.
The other thing is, some of you will be working with people and helping them through stuff.
Yeah.
If you want to take what we've given you as a template and just relabel it, go right ahead.
Yeah.
No,
absolutely.
It's yours to use in whatever way that you feel will be of benefit to everyone in yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll just a couple more moments in case anyone has any questions or anything else you want to share. But from us, thank you so much for being part of this first New Year experience for us.
Virtual
online. Virtual New Year experience.
You're very welcome, John. Awesome to hear. Rhonda, much love.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And we look forward to hearing. If we're not connected to you via social media or those means, please connect with us, because
James will say that's FOMO.
With everybody. What's FOMO?
Because I said connect with us on social media, like I think on the first call, and he turned around and said, "Is that FOMO cheese?"
And thank you to you all. Yeah, as Grace said, thank you to you all for your participation. It's been really great to have so many people join us, and to not just to join us and listen, but to also participate and contribute as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Much love to you all.
Thanks, guys. See ya.